Ever feel like you're staring at your screen, just completely lost in this massive world of web development frameworks? I feel like I'm always trying to find the perfect one for my next project.
Yeah, it can definitely feel like you're standing at the bottom of a mountain looking up at this impossible climb.
Exactly. But that's why we're here today on TechSphere.
Yeah.
To help all of you listening conquer that mountain.
That's right. We're diving deep into 5 of the most popular web development frameworks out there.
React, Angular, Vue.js, Express, and Django.
And by the end of this deep dive, you'll have a much better understanding of which framework might be right for you.
Exactly. So let's just jump right in, and let's start with the front end. You know, that part of a website that users actually see and interact with.
Right, the flashy stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what exactly is a front-end framework, and why should we even care about using one? I mean, can't we just build websites with plain old HTML, CSS, and JavaScript?
Well, you technically could, but using a framework is kind of like the difference between building a house with just a hammer and nails versus having power tools and pre-built walls.
Okay, that makes sense, I guess.
Frameworks, they give you all these pre-built tools and components that can save you a ton of time and effort, and they can also help you write cleaner, more maintainable code.
So basically, they help us work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of smarter, not harder, our sources seem to really focus on React, Angular, and Vue.js as the top contenders for front-end development. So what can you tell us about these 3 heavy hitters? What makes each of them unique?
Well, each one definitely has its own distinct flavor. Let's start with React, which was created by Facebook. Think of React like building with Legos.
Legos.
Yeah. React is all about building your user interface out of these small, reusable components. And because these components are independent of each other, it makes your code super easy to maintain and update. You can change one component without having to worry about breaking something else.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So React is like the modular framework. What about Angular? I've heard that one can be a bit trickier to learn.
Yeah, Angular has a reputation for being a bit more opinionated. That means it has a very specific way of doing things.
Which can be a good or bad thing, depending on your perspective, I imagine.
Exactly. If you're someone who likes a lot of structure and guidance, then Angular's conventions can be really helpful. But if you're more of a free spirit who likes to do things your own way, then it might feel a bit restrictive. But that being said, Angular is a very powerful framework, and it's used by a lot of large companies like Google.
So React is the adaptable one, and Angular is the super structured one. What about Vue.js? Where does that fit in?
Vue.js is kind of like the Goldilocks of front-end frameworks. It's not as opinionated as Angular, but it's also not as completely open-ended as React.
So like a happy medium.
Yeah, exactly. Vue.js is known for being very beginner-friendly. It's easy to learn and get started with, but it's also very powerful, and it can be used to build very complex applications.
So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
You could say that.
Okay, so we've talked about the front end, the part of the website that users actually see and interact with. But what about the back end? You know, the behind-the-scenes stuff that makes everything work.
Yeah, the back end is like the engine of a car. You don't see it, but it's what makes the car go.
And when it comes to back-end frameworks, our sources highlighted Express and Django. What can you tell us about these 2?
So Express, which is based on JavaScript, is kind of like the Swiss Army knife of backend frameworks. It's super versatile and can be used for a wide variety of projects. It's especially popular for building APIs, which are like the messengers that allow different parts of your application to talk to each other.
Okay, so Express is like the all-rounder. What about Django?
Django is built on Python, and it's known for being very batteries included.
Batteries included. What does that mean exactly?
It means that Django comes with a lot of built-in features and tools that you would otherwise have to build yourself, like an ORM, which helps you interact with your database.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So Django is like the framework that gives you a head start. So we've talked about a lot of different frameworks today, and I know it can be overwhelming to try to keep track of them all and figure out which one is right for you. So if you had to give one piece of advice to someone who's just starting out with web development, what would it be?
I would say, don't get too caught up in trying to learn every single framework out there. Instead, focus on finding one that seems interesting to you and then really dive deep into it. Learn the ins and outs of that one framework, and then you can start to branch out and learn others once you have a solid foundation.
That's great advice. Thanks for that.
No problem.
And that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the world of web development frameworks. Hopefully now you have a better understanding of the lay of the land and you're feeling more confident about choosing the right framework for your next project. And remember, no matter what framework you choose, the most important thing is to just get out there and start building something awesome.
Thanks for listening to TechSphere. Please like, subscribe, and tell a friend about the show.